Angel McCautry was one of the first major names to publicly question the WNBA's economic limits, but now her absence in the league is part of a broader, more threatening shift. Project B, a newly launched international league, is directly challenging the WNBA's financial model by offering players massive salaries, equity stakes, and global exposure. The numbers are staggering, up to 9 times what most athletes currently earn in the U.S. league. This isn't just about bigger paychecks. It's about leverage, with many stars now either leaving or staying quiet about their WNBA futures. The power is no longer with the league, but rapidly tilting toward the players. And with negotiations looming for the next collective bargaining agreement, the timing could not be more volatile.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Project B isn't just competition. It's a direct test of whether the WNBA's current model can survive in a world where players know their worth. With Caitlin Clark entering the scene amid this growing disruption, league officials are desperate to hold the line while avoiding a full-blown lockout. But if they try to restrict athletes from pursuing these new global deals, it may backfire spectacularly. The game has changed, and unless the WNBA overhauls its structure, the very league that once defined women's basketball in America could find itself reduced to a stepping stone for athletes chasing more rewarding careers abroad. The WNBA is in full panic mode, and honestly, you can't blame them. A mysterious new international league called Project B just threw a Molotov cocktail into the middle of women's professional basketball. An explosion? Yeah, it's loud. Players are looking at offers up to 9 times what they're making in the WNBA. And that's not even the most shocking part. Because what Project B is offering isn't just money. We're talking equity stakes, global exposure, the kind of power and visibility the WNBA has spent decades trying to build now being offered overnight. And suddenly, the league's crown jewel, its monopoly on American women's basketball, is starting to crack. You got the league's biggest names either leaving or keeping suspiciously quiet about coming back. And in the middle of it all, a high-stakes game of chicken between the WNBA, its players, and a disruptor that's playing with deep pockets and zero chill. Let's back it up. For years, the WNBA's biggest problem wasn't talent. It was money. Top-tier players weren't exactly getting rich off the league, and many of them quietly padded their incomes by playing overseas in the off-season. Russia, Turkey, China. It wasn't new. But now, that side hustle has turned into a full-on escape plan. Players like Angel McCautry and even newer stars like Sabrina Ionescu are already out, or at least not committing to being in. The WNBA built itself around a business model rooted in domestic TV deals, ticket sales, and a tightly controlled calendar. It relied on the idea that this was the pinnacle of the sport. But when someone comes along and offers to pay you 9 times more, with global exposure and business stakes, that illusion shatters fast. Project B didn't just show up. They launched like a missile, right as the WNBA heads into CBA negotiations. With murmurs of potential lockout already in the air, Project B is throwing golden lifeboats at the players. Timing? Impeccable. Strategy? Brutal. And now, the league has a choice. Either let players chase these outside opportunities and risk losing them entirely, or try to restrict them and risk total mutiny. So when you hear that the WNBA commissioner is warning players like Caitlin Clark, it's not just about one rising star. It's a signal, a desperate attempt to hold the line. Clark represents the future. Mass appeal, crossover stardom, huge commercial value. If she goes, or even considers going, it won't just be a loss. It could trigger a full-on collapse. Because Project B isn't offering small deals. These are big-money, VC-backed contracts that include ownership opportunities and the kind of freedom WNBA players have never seen. And even though no one knows if it's financially sustainable long-term, that doesn't really matter right now. Because the offers are real, the money is moving, and the players, they're done pretending they're okay with being underpaid. The CBA negotiations are already shaping up to be a powder keg. If the WNBA insists on limiting player movement, basically saying you can't play for us in them, things could spiral fast. A lockout is very much on the table. And unlike past years, this time, the players have leverage, real leverage, For the first time, they can walk away from the WNBA and not just survive, but thrive. And that changes everything. This isn't just a threat to the league's financial model. It's a direct challenge to its entire identity. The WNBA has always positioned itself as the destination for elite women's basketball. But Project B is trying to flip that script. They're selling a vision of global stardom, financial freedom, and actual power. It's a shiny, expensive alternative, and it's already working. And here's where it gets even messier. Let's talk sustainability. Because a lot of this hinges on whether Project B can actually keep offering these wild salaries. If it's a short-term stunt to make noise and grab talent, there's a real risk the whole thing crashes in a few years. But even if that happens, the damage is done. The moment those 9-figure numbers hit the table, salary expectations change forever. Players have seen the numbers. They've seen what they could be making. And even if Project B vanishes tomorrow, they're not going to forget that. The WNBA will be forced to reckon with it, whether they want to or not. Because now, market value isn't just what the WNBA says it is. It's what the rest of the world is actually willing to pay. That puts the league in a brutal spot. Raise salaries and try to keep up? Risk long-term financial instability. Don't raise salaries? Watch the stars walk away. Neither option is pretty, but pretending this isn't happening, that's not going to cut it anymore. There's a very real scenario where the WNBA slowly becomes a developmental league, a place where young talent plays for exposure, then jets off to Project B once they've built a name. That's how quickly the power dynamic is shifting. What used to be the final destination could soon become just a pit stop, and the commissioner knows it. That's why the warnings are happening. That's why the league is trying to tighten the rules before it's too late. But here's the problem. You can't unring the bell. The players know their worth now. They've seen what freedom looks like, and they're not going back. This is about more than just money. It's about autonomy, control, being able to say yes or no without fearing financial consequences. For decades, the WNBA had the leverage. Now the players do, and they're not wasting it. Even if Project B turns out to be a flash in the pan, its impact is permanent because it revealed the gap between what players were being paid and what they could be paid. It forced a conversation the league can't avoid anymore. And if Project B is a real deal, if they can sustain these offers long-term and keep scaling, then the WNBA isn't just in trouble. It could be outmaneuvered entirely. That's the nightmare scenario. A global, flashy, high-paying league with no geographical loyalty, scooping up the best talent and leaving the WNBA scrambling to stay relevant. Not extinct, just obsolete. Now, none of this means the WNBA disappears tomorrow, but the foundation has shifted. The illusion of exclusivity is gone. The players know it. The fans know it. And the commissioner definitely knows it. Segment. CC, close phase, which brings us back to the warnings. The fear, the subtle threats of consequences for players even thinking about jumping ship. Because what happens if Caitlin Clark, the most hyped rookie in years, decides the WNBA is enough? What happens if she takes the bag? It's not just one player leaving. It's the domino that could bring the whole structure down. So yeah, the league is nervous. Project B didn't just knock on the door, it kicked it down. And whether it lasts 5 years or 50, the message has landed loud and clear. Women's basketball is global now. And the WNBA doesn't get to call all the shots anymore. Let's be real, this is a historic shift. The power is changing hands, and no amount of PR spin or closed-door meetings can undo it. The players have seen the future. The question is, will the league evolve or get left behind? Let me know what you think. Should players chase the money and freedom Project B is offering, or should the WNBA hold the line to protect its structure? Drop your thoughts in the comments, like if you're following the drama, and don't forget to subscribe for more breakdowns like this. It's getting messy, and we'll be watching every step of the way. Let's talk about the stakes. Because this isn't just about one league versus another. It's about a complete unraveling of the power hierarchy in women's sports, and everyone knows it. The WNBA built its brand on being the home for elite women's basketball. For years, They were the only game in town with real infrastructure, media coverage, and a consistent season. But that also came with gatekeeping. The salaries were capped. The calendar was rigid. And international play? That was tolerated. Until it wasn't. Now, here comes Project B, rolling in like a tech startup with unlimited funding and zero respect for tradition. They're not asking for permission. They're offering deals the WNBA can't match. Because the WNBA was never built to play this kind of financial chess. And the kicker? They don't have to beat the WNBA to win. They just have to peel off enough stars to destabilize the whole system. We've already seen it happen before. Look at men's soccer. When Saudi-backed leagues started poaching talent, everyone laughed. But then the contracts got bigger and bigger. And suddenly, global superstars were turning down Champions League games for 9-figure paydays. That's not theoretical anymore. That's the playbook. And Project B is reading it line by line. It's clear they've done their homework. Launching during WNBA-CBA negotiations? That's not random. That's surgical. They know the players are at a breaking point with salary limitations. They know there's tension between the league's goals and the players' financial reality. They're not trying to compete. They're trying to replace. And what happens when the best players in the world stop thinking of the WNBA as the end goal? What happens when the fans start following them instead of the league? That's the existential crisis. Segment. CNCC. The WNBA commissioner might be warning Caitlin Clark today, but that warning reads more like a plea. Because Caitlin isn't just a talented rookie. She's a media magnet. She's a rare player who can move jerseys, ratings, and headlines. If she even flirts with Project B, it sends a message to every player watching. This league might not be enough, and the league knows it. What's wild is that the WNBA has never had more attention than it does right now. Viewership is up. Headlines are everywhere. The conversation around women's sports has finally broken through. But just as the spotlight arrives, so does the threat, and the timing could not be worse. It's like spending decades climbing a mountain, only to realize there's a helicopter waiting to fly people to the top. And now, the climbers are asking, why are we still doing this the hard way? You can't blame them. Players have been underpaid for years. They've flown commercial, played back-to-back games across time zones, and built the league's reputation off grit and hustle. And now, someone's finally recognizing their worth. With real money, not just hashtags. Of course they're tempted. Who wouldn't be? But let's not pretend the WNBA can just outlast this. That strategy might have worked in the past, when overseas leagues were fragmented and poorly marketed. But Project B is built different. This isn't just some foreign side hustle. It's a full-scale brand with global ambition. They want to own the conversation. And if they keep throwing life-changing money at players, they just might. Now, a lot of people are asking, is Project B even sustainable? Can they really afford to hand out these massive contracts year after year? And the honest answer is, we don't know. Maybe it's VC money with a short-term burn strategy. Maybe they're trying to buy relevance fast, then pivot. That's happened before. And if it fails? Sure, some players might be left scrambling. But here's the thing. Even if Project B collapses in 5 years, it still changes everything. Because now the WNBA can't go back to business as usual. The players won't allow it. The fans won't buy it. The market has shifted. Even if Project B is temporary, the pressure it's putting on the WNBA is permanent. This is what disruption looks like. It's messy, it's unpredictable, and it doesn't always play fair. If the WNBA wants to survive this, they can't just play defense. They need to rethink everything, from salary caps to revenue sharing to how they treat their stars. Because right now, the players aren't just employees. They're the product. And the product knows it can walk. And what happens if enough of them do? The threat of a lockout is real. If the WNBA tries to restrict outside play during the next CBA, it's going to get ugly. Players aren't in the mood to be told no right now. Not after seeing what's out there. And if they walk, even temporarily, the league risks losing all the momentum it spent years building. That's not a risk, it's a crisis. The irony here is brutal. For the first time, women's basketball is trending. It's hot. People are watching. There's money on the table. And just when it seems like the WNBA might finally break through the ceiling, someone else crashes the party and throws cash at the guests. So now, the league has to decide, do they double down on control and tradition, or do they evolve? Segment, Unrivaled League. Photos, because let's be real, the WNBA model wasn't built for this kind of competition. It was built for a world where women had no other options. That world is gone. And if they don't pivot fast, they're going to lose more than just players. They're going to lose the narrative. The players already know they're valuable. That toothpaste is out of the tube. And no warning, fine, or public statement is going to put it back in. Even if the money from Project B dries up, the impact has already rippled through the entire ecosystem. Players now expect more. Fans expect better. And the league can't ignore that. This is a wake-up call, and it's blaring at full volume. We're witnessing the beginning of a shift that could define the next decade of women's sports. The players hold the cards. The old rules don't apply. And unless the WNBA finds a way to meet this moment, they might get left behind by their own stars. So now the pressure is on. Will the league adapt? Will it find a way to compete with the new offers flooding in from overseas and beyond? Or will it try to gatekeep its way into irrelevance? That's the real question. Because the players have options. And for once, they're not afraid to use them. Let's not sugarcoat it. The WNBA is standing on a fault line. And the rumble from Project B? It's more than a tremor. This is a kind of seismic shift that cracks foundations. Every conversation happening behind closed doors in the WNBA right now, it's not about who's winning games. It's about who's staying, who's willing to stick around and accept the current salary structure, the media politics, and the league's old-school operating model, and who's already eyeing the exit. Because when players see other athletes, people they played with, trained with, and competed against, signing deals worth millions, you think they're going to stay quiet. You think they're going to sit through another CBA negotiation being told to trust the process, while the world is literally offering them a better one? Let's talk numbers for a second. The current WNBA max salary hovers in the low six figures. Respectable? Sure. But life-changing? Generational wealth? Not even close. And when Project B waves offers worth 9 times that, plus equity, you're not just tempting players. You're calling into question everything the WNBA's built its model on. Because if the only way to keep stars is by limiting where they can play, then the product isn't strong enough on its own. And that's not a dig, it's reality. The WNBA has done a lot of things right. It's grown visibility. It's cultivated talent. It's fought tooth and nail for legitimacy in a market that, frankly, hasn't always given a fair shot. But what it hasn't done is pay its players like they're the backbone of the sport. Project B? They saw the opening, and they drove a tank through it. Segment, CC press conference, and now the commissioner's public warnings. They're not just words. They're a last-ditch attempt to preserve leverage. But here's the thing. Leverage is earned, not demanded. And when your top-tier players are already looking overseas or staying silent during contract talks, you don't have leverage anymore. You have a problem. Caitlin Clark's name keeps getting tossed around for a reason. She's not just a generational player. She's a business opportunity. And the WNBA needs her to stay locked in. If she jumps or even hints that she's exploring other options, it sets a precedent that's almost impossible to reverse. It tells every college star coming up that the WNBA isn't the dream, it's the backup plan. And honestly, that might already be the case. The PR spin from the league right now is all about protecting the integrity of the sport or ensuring long-term viability. But for the players, it boils down to something simpler: respect. Compensation is respect. Ownership is respect. Being treated like the center of the business model, not a cost to be managed, is respect. Project B might not have the same legacy, but they're showing respect with dollar signs, with global reach, with control. And maybe, just maybe, that's what players have been waiting for all along. Because when you've been told for years to be patient, to accept less, to grow with the league, and then someone comes along offering you what you're actually worth, it's not a hard decision. It's just a risky one. But guess what? The risk isn't as scary when you've been underpaid for most of your career. when you've had to fly commercial, when your off-season grind overseas wasn't a luxury, it was survival. So now, the WNBA is looking at a future where more and more players might take that risk. Not just fringe names. Stars, MVPs, champions. And once that pipeline opens, it's going to be hard to close. Sure, the league could try to lock them in with contracts, ban outside play, threaten suspension, but that is short-term fix with long-term damage. You think the fans are going to rally behind a league that's punishing its best talent for chasing better opportunities? You think sponsors won't notice when your biggest stars are wearing someone else's jersey? This isn't about loyalty anymore. It's about leverage. And the players finally have some. That's the plot twist here. For the first time in decades, the power dynamic is shifting. And not because the league offered more, but because someone else did. Whether or not Project B sticks around for the long haul almost doesn't matter. The pressure they've applied has already changed the game. It's exposed the gap. It's raised the ceiling. And now, the WNBA either has to meet that challenge or shrink under it. The worst-case scenario isn't even total collapse. It's irrelevance. Becoming the league where stars start, not where they stay. Becoming a stepping stone to better deals somewhere else. And if you think that can't happen, just look at what happened to domestic soccer leagues when Europe opened its wallet. Look at what happened to boxing when Saudi Arabia entered the room. Segment, CC, close face money changes everything. And right now, it's knocking on the WNBA's door with a giant checkbook and a lot of ambition. So where does that leave us? The next few months are going to be brutal. Negotiations are already tense. Players are watching closely. Agents are making calls. And fans? They're torn because they love the WNBA. But they love the players more. And if the players bounce, so does the loyalty. So yeah, warn Caitlin Clark. Warn every rising star. But understand, those warnings aren't working anymore. The players aren't scared. They're curious. They're calculating. They're done waiting. Let me know what you think. Would you take the Project B deal? Do you think the WNBA can survive this new era, or are we watching the beginning of something totally different? Hit the like button if you're following the money trail. Subscribe if you want to keep up with every twist in this drama. And drop your thoughts in the comments. Is this the revolution women's basketball has been waiting for, or the chaos that could tear it all apart? We'll be here, watching it unfold.